This one it is called Kiev, it's still standing. There is a motto. Many of the truths that we cling on to defend depends of our point of view. It's an obvious phrase. The point of view is important. There are more sides to a story. This is not from a famous philosopher. It is actually from a famous master. The quote is from a famous master, Master Yoda. However, some truths are indeed self-evident, and they don't depend on the point of view. They just are. As much as other people, they will try to change the story, to create an alternative narrative, how they call it, to manipulate the story, to pick and choose out of the story, to copy paste out of the story, to misinterpret the story, to spin the story. Sometimes it's one simple truth. The truth that we are speaking today, it's February 26th, Bucharest, Romania, almost 4 o'clock p.m., is the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine. In my previous video, I was calling for Mr. President Xi Jinping, President of China, to pick up the phone and talk with Mr. President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, as presidents do at their high level there. But there was one thing, a few words that were important. Stop the war, basically. And to my optimism, when I opened the TV later at night, I saw that actually probably not because, of course, not because of my video, it's a coincidence or it's a logical thing that happened probably before I posted that video, before I made that video. It resonated to me. Mr. President Xi Jinping, in his infinite wisdom, picked up the phone, already was talking with Mr. Putin. I had immense high hopes, literally, from this kind of talk. I hope they will put some ideas together as two great leaders of two great nations, of two great countries, commander of two great armies, two countries of immense importance and align their economies and their interests for the good of the world, to members of the United Nations Security Council, for the good of the world. They will put some ideas together and something good will come out of this conversation. Something good means something tangible in the field, in the next day. Why not in the next hour? Because every hour, every day costs lives in the battlefield. As I speak, I was wrong yesterday. Based on what I saw on TV, it was supposed that Kiev will fall to the Russian invaders, to the Russian army, to the Russian soldiers, to the Russian tanks, to the Russian bombs, to the Russian missiles, to the Russian aggression. in a matter of hours. They didn't. I thought they would fell overnight. They didn't. In fact, none of the major Ukrainian cities failed, capitulated. It is a show of courage and strength and resilience, determination that is humbling me. Mr. Xi and Mr. Putin, as I saw on TV, two very good friends that they met many times. I know that Mr. Putin was such a good friend of Mr. Xi, and they have such a good time together during. This is very good. There is nothing wrong in that. Mr. Xi gave Mr. Putin a medal of friendship. It's very good that the Chinese people and the Russian people are friends. I saw them in a train. Mr. Putin was asking about the Ministry of Transportation, the way they do the planning with the railroads, and that's excellent. 2018, not long time ago. They did pancakes, they visit different exhibitions, they celebrated birthdays together, they served with pancakes and caviar, ice cream. Mr. Putin gave a 3-day tour or something like that to Mr. Xi to show him the beauty of Russia. This is the beautiful thing I like to see, it's inspiring. That's what leaders do. Great leaders with great vision. They talk about the friendship of their country, the cooperation of their country, how to develop their country, how to improve the standard of living of their nation, and how to keep peace and security for the good of the Russian people, for the good of the Chinese people, for the good of the Ukrainian people, for the good of the world. Mr. Xi picked up the phone and talked with Mr. Putin. I was very curious, and on February 26th, 25th happened, and I watched a Chinese TV station that mentioned what those two presidents talked. And I write it down because I like to take notes, to learn from great leaders. Basically, the two presidents exchanged views with a focus on the urgent situation in Ukraine. President Putin set forth the historical context of the Ukrainian issue. Yes, we knew the historical context with NATO, with 2014 invasion of Crimea, with I don't have to go back in history to from the kingdom of Kiev and things from 15th century, from 16th century, or we live in 2022. There are historical grievances. How about if India, yes, India, or Great Britain will go back to the 19th century and claim India back, or something like that. There is no need to go back in history to the Second World War, to the First World War, to the 19th century, to the 18th century. What I don't know that kind of history. It's easy to read, it's easy to see a documentary, it's easy to ask my mom, that is a history teacher. What I do know is that we live in 2022 and Ukraine was, is an independent, was, I said was, because at the time of the Russian invasion, was 3 days ago, or 8 years ago, or 2014, still is today an independent and sovereign country recognized by everybody. I'm going to repeat this, by everybody on the face of this planet. Every international institution, including the United Nations, recognized Ukraine as an independent and sovereign country. Only Mr. Putin has a different kind of narrative based on their common history and a lot of things that Mr. Putin laid out. The historical context of the Ukrainian issue. The simple historical context is this one that I'm talking about now. Ukraine is an independent and sovereign country that was attacked by 175,000 Russian soldiers in the air, on land, and on sea. This is the historical context. The rest can be discussed. But the simple historical context is exactly this one. Russia's special military operation in eastern Ukraine and its position to the noted that the United Nations and NATO have long turned a blind eye to Russia's legitimate security concerns and have repeatedly neglected their promises to Russia. So, Russia has legitimate security concerns, and NATO and the United States turned a blind eye. I talked about NATO a lot. I talked about United States. I'm looking for a diplomatical term, shortcomings, mistakes, for what is wrong about the United States of America, the policies of the United States of America, including NATO, including Afghanistan, including Iraq, including. There are well-known subjects. There is one line that covers all, and it's a title of one of my videos. There is no excuse for invading Ukraine. So, they continued military deployment. That's what they talked, and that's what the Chinese television is telling me. The presidents, they continued military deployment eastward. Their continued military deployment eastward, NATO, has challenged Russia's strategic red lines. I understand that. Russia felt threatened that, oh my God, Romanian tanks will go and march in the Red Square to conquer Kremlin. Absolutely not. I want to remind everybody that is seeing this video that when the Russians were members of the Pact of Warsaw and an entire Pact of Warsaw said that we'll go to invade, not to defend, invade our brothers and sisters in Prague in '68, Romania didn't want to invade our brothers and sisters in Prague. So no. I don't think that Ukraine was such a threat to Russia as Mr. Vladimir Putin wants to show to the world. I don't think that Mr. Vladimir Putin was such a leader to be so scared of Ukraine and NATO there. I don't think that Russia that have 55 or give or take 5,500 nuclear warheads and one of the most sophisticated kind of weapons in the world that even Mr. Putin showed it to the world is afraid of Ukraine invading Moscow, bombing 16, 18, I don't know how many Russian cities, taking parts of Russia as they did with the other countries. I don't think that Mr. Putin, a black belt in judo and a world leader undeniable in time of peace, in time of war, is afraid that Mr. Zelensky is gonna put together some army to go and surround Moscow and hunt him down at Kremlin, or when he was skating and playing hockey. I don't think that Mr. Zelensky was that kind of person and was high on his menu, even that a large part of his population in Ukraine, they want to join NATO. Romania is comfortable in NATO since 2004. Join NATO. I'm Romanian, I know. Most, not because we want to invade Russia, but because we are scared that Russia is going to invade us. Not today being member of NATO, but look what Russia did to Ukraine. Unfortunately, as I talk, Mr. Putin confirmed all the bad stereotypes that the West throw on him. And now he did, through his action, I said this with great sadness, he confirmed all of those. That he's an invader, that Russia has not only a Cold War mentality, but an imperialistic kind of mentality. In that phone call, Mr. Putin also expressed Russia's willingness to have high-level negotiation with Ukraine. High-level negotiation with Ukraine. Mr. Putin said, let's negotiate. I'm going to come back to this subject. Mr. President Xi, more important, Mr. President Xi pointed out that the recent dramatic changes in the situation in eastern Ukraine, first and foremost, Mr. President Xi is not in eastern Ukraine. It's in the capital. They are in the capital of Ukraine as I speak. Again, there are fights on the bridges, on the streets, in the neighbor suburbs of Ukraine, of Kiev, of the capital. The situation in eastern Ukraine attracted a lot of attention in the international community. Yes, the invasion of a sovereign and independent country with 45 million people in Europe in 2022 with 175 soldiers by air, by land and by sea, it is a subject that indeed attracted a lot of attention in the international community, and not the good kind of attention. Not the type of attention when you see there at the Olympic village, between Olympic villages and cities, a beautiful train that runs with more than 300 kilometers an hour and magnetic suspension, propulsion, and it is so smooth that you can put a coin on a side and the coin stays like that. That's the kind of attention you would like to attract from the world. Everybody would like that. That's the type of attention that attracts admiration, respect and admiration. The invasion of Ukraine didn't attract the right kind, the good kind of attention. Mr. President Xi continued and he said something important. China determined its position based on the merits of the Ukraine issue itself. In translation, we don't determine our position based on the need of oil and gas from Russia or of how much we lended, how much money we lended to Russia, or how much our economies are interconnected. So the merit of the Ukrainian issue itself. That is very good. That is very good. It is important to reject Cold War mentality, Mr. President Xi said. Take seriously and respect the reasonable security concern of all countries and reach a balanced, effective, and sustainable European security mechanism throughout negotiations. Wow. So it is important to reject Cold War mentalities. Yes, however, I was born during the Cold War. I read in the book about the Iron Curtain, the East, Pact of Warsaw, NATO. I was part of Pact of Warsaw, Romania, under the Russian sphere of influence behind the Iron Curtain. We were fighting the West. The West was bad. Then in '89, I went in the morning to acupuncture with my wife at the time. And when we went out from the acupuncture clinic, it was a revolution in the middle of Romania, 21st of December 1989, give or take around 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the morning. The beginning of the Romanian Revolution in Bucharest. We end up in the middle of a revolution. And then the government changed, and then Romania was changed. In 2004, we entered NATO. Now the story changed. Now we are in NATO, we have to fight the West, the East. Obviously, we are part of the Western Alliance. We have to fight the East. This means China and Russia. Well, when I grew up, I didn't want to fight the West. When I'm an adult now, I don't want to fight the East. I see no reason why to fight China. I see absolutely no reason why to fight Russia, except when Russians are invading another independent and peaceful country. They are wrong. Their president is wrong. Their policies are wrong. And you have to say it loud and clear in simple kind of English. It is important to reject the Cold War mentalities. As I illustrated, take two for a tango and takes two parts for a Cold War mentality. I think the Cold War mentality it is in Russia. Huge imperialistic mentality, even more than a Cold War mentality. And Russia is aligned right now with China against the West, which is very, very, very bad kind of policy. So there is a Cold War mentality there, Mr. President, as there is a Cold War mentality in the West. And not because of a short Romanian guy with a strong accent. So both sides have to review their position. It's important to reject the Cold War mentality in the East, in China and Russia, and in the West, in the United States and the rest of the European Union and Western allies. It is important, you're right, to reject the Cold War mentality. Take seriously and respect the security concerns of all countries. I think Mr. Putin took very serious the security concerns of the Ukrainian people and went there with his 175,000 soldiers, or not all of them as I speak today, but as I speak right now, he is bombing Kiev. He is fighting to conquer the capital of another independent, sovereign country in Europe, recognized by the entire world. And reach a balanced, in simple words, what the fuck is balanced when you go with 175,000 troops from four directions and you want to take the capital of another city? What the fuck is balanced here? I mean, I grew up in a world when words should have meaning. balanced, effective, and sustainable European security mechanism throughout negotiation. Yeah, whatever. China supports. This is this is the key phrase. China supports Russia. I'm gonna take the highlight. That's how important this phrase is. This is the phrase I was looking for from Mr. President Xi Jinping from great nation of China. China supports oops, wow. China supports Russia. So what are we talking about? Russia invaded Ukraine. China supports Russia? Wait. In resolving the issue through negotiation with Ukraine. So, this is a nice phrase. I mean, I'm trying, that's how I learn in school to have the text, to understand the ideas, to understand the meaning of the words, the logic of the phrases in a context. That's how I learn in elementary school. So, China supports Russia in resolving the issue through negotiating with Ukraine. In simple words, this is the typical phrase that used in international politics that everybody can take whatever they want. I really wrote here, what the fuck is China talking about here? Saying here. That's the right way to address the question because, to be honest, I'm sick and tired of everything, seeing people being bombed, seeing countries being invaded like Iraq, like Afghanistan, like Ukraine. What is China saying here? We support Russia. First part of the phrase, China supports Russia. So, somebody can take this part. We support Russia in invading Ukraine. This is how should I interpret this phrase? No, supports Russia in resolving the issue through negotiation with Ukraine. So, we support Ukraine in negotiation with Putin. I'm confused. Maybe I need a banana, I'm confused. I'm gonna eat a banana to understand because China supports Russia in resolving the issue through negotiation with Ukraine. How about China suggest Russia? That would have been more... Anyway. The typical diplomatic talk that I wrote here. Blah blah and blah blah and blah blah and blah blah and blah blah. Literally. Why? I don't think what the Russians are doing now, as I talk in Kiev, it calls, what do you call it? Negotiation with Ukraine. I don't think that they are negotiating that much. I think they are killing Ukrainian people trying to defend their countries and their capital and their democratically elected government. Blah, 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 and more blah, blah. China has long held the position of respecting all countries' sovereignty and territorial integrity. This is very important. I'm going to take a different color. This is the core of the entire. This is one of the Chinese principles on international politics. So, position of respecting all countries' sovereignty and territorial integrity. So, I think going over the border of an independent, sovereign right? Sovereign, I have it here with sovereign. I wrote it down, sovereignty. Sovereign country, like Ukraine, it's, I mean, it is against what China is advocating on the international world stage. How China is reiterating its position of respecting. I think if you go with the army and bomb the cities and kill the citizen, you don't respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. That's how I understand English. That's how I understand what I see on TV. So, with all the respect, what the fuck are you talking about? Literally. I mean, we are all idiots. Where is the territorial integrity? Where is the sovereignty? I'm not a diplomat, I'm not a head of state, I have no desire to be one. However, I understand something simple like that. Say no word. That was my previous speech all about. Say no word. Or niet by or stop the war. That is simple like that. 3 words. Stop the war. Cease fire. Cease fire. Stop killing each other. If China will say words like these, stop killing each other, everybody will understand on the entire universe. Stop killing each other. Stop invading Ukraine. Stop bombing their cities. That's English with meaning. Stop the war. Cease fire. Say no war. Niet by make love not war from the 60s. In 2022 I said make business not war. This is English with meaning. Everything out here, it's blah blah and blah blah and blah blah and blah blah and more diplomatic as blah blah. And the time of diplomatical blah blah is gone. Bombs, as I speak, bombs are falling on Kiev. How those bombs and missiles are respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. That part I don't understand. But I'm not a smart man. Maybe I need more banana. Maybe I need to clean up my hands. It's not complicated. I have it here. But some people, metaphorically speak, the blood of the hands of some world leaders will be very difficult to clean. Stop the war. Cease fire. Say no war. Niet by niet. Make love not war. That's a good idea. Make business not war. It is obviously here that in this kind of phrase, China supports Russia in resolving the issue through negotiation with Ukraine. China tried to navigate and make everybody happy. Russia, not to insult Russia, and President Putin stressed the need for negotiation, and they end up saying absolutely nothing. Even Mr. Yoda, wisdom, is more meaningful now. He said, no, try not. Do or not do. There is no try. The way I translate this one is either you say stop the war, either you say cease fire, either you say niet by net. This is trying China support by abiding by the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. Wow, wow. I talk about the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. I read there that the purposes and the principles of the UN Charter and the job that the members of the Security Council, there, the big ones and the other ones, is to prevent conflict and to maintain peace and stability. Let me tell you a story about maintenance. When I was a student in Canada, I took a course for sure. Apparently, people don't like me. I don't know why. I'm not concerned about that. No, some people don't like me. Maybe I don't know how to speak diplomatic and say nothing in yen. To maintain peace and stability, a course of maintenance. I didn't know what maintenance mean. My father used to repair the car from time to time when the car needed repair. That was reactive maintenance, I learned in the course. Very interesting. Anyway, long story short, I learned how complicated, however interesting and intelligent it is to make a maintenance plan to keep in function a refinery, for example, or a fleet of planes, and it's very important. I didn't know, I learned a lot at that course, even that was an optional kind of course. I enjoyed, and at the end of the course, I have to write a paper. Most of my colleagues, that it was a lot of material on the internet. I don't know, talk bad about my colleagues, but they get inspiration from that, got inspiration from there, and they use that kind of material to be diplomatic. I said, I'm not going to do that. This is boring what I found there. Other people wrote, they put part of their uh, paper on the internet. No, I said, I want to think about it because I enjoyed the course, the course, the lectures, and I need some time to think. And I was working full time. I went over the deadline there. However, I was able to write a few words, a few pages. And the title, I like the meaningful title. It was Maintenance, a Homeopathic Approach. And that was eye-catching and make my teacher curious. Basically, a homeopathic approach, long story short, it is in homeopathy there are not illnesses but just patients, because the same kind of illness, the same kind of cold of an athlete of 25 years old doesn't work the same, the virus, the cold, as a person 80 or 90 years old with different kind of comorbidities or different kind. Obviously, as like wine, they call it terroir. Here is I don't know how they call it now, but different. The base of the where the illness is active is different. So basically, you have to have a different approach, not one measurement fits all. And I try to give examples of different of the land taxi, a company that has a lot of taxis. In Romania, there were many companies developing, private companies, and some of the cars were old. They keep maintaining them, repairing them. That was an obvious example. And then I said, I need to go something very different. And I thought of a Russian fleet of nuclear submarines. I said that's one way when you make a maintenance plan for a company with taxis. There is another way as you maintain the fleet of nuclear submarines of Russia. And the other, I thought about air and high in the air. I said there is another plan for rockets that fly in space. They need to be perfectly maintained. I wrote a little bit how much I found on the internet, not that much, but the idea of a homeopathic approach was interesting. It was a good paper, yet because I was over the deadline there, I didn't got the highest mark possible, but a very good mark. I was happy. So, to maintain peace and stability, maintenance, it's about maintenance of the international system. It's not taxi, it's not nuclear submarine, but there are land, there are planes, there are nuclear submarines, there are nuclear atomo-electrical power plants, there are rockets that they fly in space. Long story short, to maintain peace and stability, as I speak now, you failed. You means the United Nations, the leaders of the world, the international system, to maintain peace and stability. As the bombs are falling over in Kiev, yes, over Kiev and other Russian bombs over Ukrainian cities, it is obviously that you failed the international system. And here we go to prevent conflict. I'm going to tell you another story, also from health, personal story both, acupuncture. It is a true story that on 21st of December 1989, I was there with my wife at the time, mother of my son Vladimir in Ukraine and Vlad in Romania. For glasses, she had glasses, and I'm a curious guy. I read a lot of things, and I found out that for myopia, how do you call it? Some needles, acupuncture needles, might help. And because we are students, we have to read a lot. We have a lot of courses over the day, 6 years of university. We went evening classes where our eyes were very tired, and her myopia was evolving, and some treatment. I found some treatment. I said, let's go. I have great respect and great trust in acupuncture, and I found out that we have a long history with the School of Acupuncturists in Romania had a long history and tradition, and it was free. It was free in the middle of Bucharest. You go there. It was an institute in collaboration with China. The story goes that Ceausescu was diabetic, and he developed all kind of health programs like this. First and foremost for himself, and he paid for the Romanian doctors to go and learn from the best of the best in the world. And Romanian doctors are very smart. And they went and they learned from the best of the best in the East and in the West, including in China, including in France, including in America, and they put together this clinic, which was very good for everybody else and free. So I went to acupuncture. Reading about acupuncture, I learned the history as much as I know. Of course, I'm a storyteller. The story goes that in ancient times in China, the duty of the doctor were to prevent the illness. If the emperor, if the personality, if the patient got ill, this means the doctor failed. That's why the amazing story of Chinese pulses and the way they examine the tongue, the eye, the ear, the outside, the outside signs, because they were not allowed to, they didn't have X-rays and MRIs at that moment. They became incredibly acute in all kind of little changes that they can give them a lot of knowledge about the state of health of a patient. If the patient became ill, they failed. Well, I have to say to the great nation of China that the patient is ill. The patient is Ukraine, and it's so ill that was invaded by a invader army, the Russian army, under the great leadership of not so great, as I played some anthems in the morning, and the sirens in the I I juxtapose the beauty and the elegance and the grandeur of the Russian national anthem with the sirens announcing aerial bombardments in Kiev and other Ukrainian cities. You can easily see here the difference. So sad. The patient is ill. The patient is Ukraine. The patient is so ill that the Russians, why is the patient ill? Because the Russians broke the borders, crossed the borders and attacked their cities in the air, on land and on the sea. So, to prevent conflict, to maintain peace and stability, you failed. On the international level, to prevent conflicts, you failed. On the international level, I'm talking about the UN Security Council, the countries that they are member of the UN Security Councils, the East, the West, everybody fucking else. China is prepared to work with, that is what they talk on the phone. China is prepared, Mr. President Xi said there that China is prepared to work with other members of the international community to promote common, comprehensive and cooperative and common, comprehensive, cooperative and sustainable security to resolutely safeguard the UN Center international system and the international order underpinned by international law. Wow. China is prepared to work with other members of the international community, so why don't you work to stop the war? What does it mean, this kind of English? Other members of the international community to promote common, comprehensive and cooperative and sustainable security. Yeah, I can give an example, Mr. President, of sustainable security. For 3 days after the invasion, Kiev is still standing. That's sustainable. For 3 days. I don't know tomorrow. Do you? Resolutely safeguard the UN. How do you safeguard? I mean, you go there, you read your things, and you talk on the phone, and this is what I got. I got a long 3-4 pages of diplomatic talk. resolutely safeguard the UN Center international system. How do you resolutely safeguard the UN Center international system? What the fuck does it mean, really? I mean, I have a limit. What resolutely safeguard the UN Center international system? Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia took their tanks and crossed the borders and now is attacking the capital of Ukraine. How is China working with other members of the international community to promote, I don't know what, common, comprehensive, sustainable security, resolutely safeguard the UN Center international system and international order underpinned by international law? Where is the international law? The international law is like that. I want to invade Iraq. I'm gonna fucking invade Iraq. Weapons of mass destruction, this and that. Saddam is the devil. Let's go. It's gonna be easy. That's the international law. Putin saw that and said, oh, the Americans did that. I'm gonna do this to Kiev. Let's invade Ukraine. Let's go to Kiev. It's gonna be easy. Slam dunk. Neo-Nazi drug dealers, I'm going there with my army. I'm gonna fuck them up. Zelensky, I'm coming. That's the fucking international law. It's a fucking circus. From this phone call, I was expecting, to be honest, a ceasefire. First and foremost, a ceasefire. And then bring everybody on the negotiation table. It is obviously in this international situation there were a few, to be polite. Both Russia and China did some miscalculations. Let's start with Russia miscalculation. There are so many. I wrote just a few of them. I got sick and tired of writing. Well, there are so many. The Russian, Mr. President Putin thought it's going to be easy, a slam dunk. It's exactly, he got inspiration from the invasion of Iraq. Unfortunately, I talk about that, and obviously nothing was easy. The invasion of the war in Korea was not easy. The war in Vietnam was not easy. A terrible example. The Russian war in Afghanistan was not easy. The invasion of Afghanistan by the Americans was a disaster. The war in Yemen is still going. The war in Syria was not easy. In Africa, there are juntas, military juntas, taking the government. Coup d'etat, one after another. There is terrorism, there are gangs, there are drug deals, there is COVID, there is poverty. Nothing is fucking easy. If you start a war, nothing is fucking easy. Even a sure Romanian guy can understand that, with no training in the international politics. No, invasion of Iraq was not easy. It was not a slam dunk. It was a mission accomplished. Yes, it will not be mission accomplished for Russia. Ukrainian, Mr. Putin said the Ukrainians are not going to fight. The Ukrainians are weak. The Ukrainians are divided. NATO and the European Union are weak. And so many others. And the last but not the least, he appreciated the president of Ukraine that came from an acting career, and I did the same thing, which I stated the obvious that he didn't have international experience in diplomatic experience in international relationship. Uh, Obviously, I was wrong. Mr. Putin was wrong. That I was wrong. I have my opinion at triple eight. The guy is tall and handsome and in America, and I don't need to look at his birth certificate. That other guy is flamboyant and wrote some The Art of the Deal, and he's a great real estate mogul and genius in financing. If I'm right, if I'm wrong, doesn't really matter that much. That the president of a country decided, huge country, that the planetary importance decided to take his very powerful army, invade another country, and threaten the international order metaphorically with nuclear war, that's a problem. Leo the Tyler is right, is wrong. Who the fuck cares in here? Sometimes I'm wrong, sometimes I'm absolutely right. I'm more right than wrong. Sometimes I'm passionate and I have to come back with a different video or with a different perspective on the same subject. Only idiots do not change their mind when there are arguments on the table. Yet, Mr. Putin was wrong, miscalculated. I'm so happy that I'm wrong myself. Kiev is still standing. It's an example for the world. I said this is high noon now. This is not a moment for in the international community. This is not a moment for diplomatic phrases that can go left, right, east, west. China is supporting Russia, but do some negotiation. This is not time for Donald Trump talk. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. No, this is high noon. This is not a military, special military intervention of peacekeepers. This is an invasion. This is a war. Unprovoked and premeditated against a sovereign and peaceful country. Under our eyes, not far from here. As I speak, the capital of a peaceful country, not far from here, is under attack. Kiev, capital of Ukraine. China, big China, miscalculated so much. As I saw in the video, it's very nice when people are friends, when they meet each other, when they talk about transportation, business, oil, gas, money. All of these ties help both countries win-win to increase the standard of living of their nations. This is very good. This is how you do it. It's very good. However, on one country of those two partners, with no limit for their friendship, a few days later go and invade another country, 45 million people kind of country, but even if it will be 1 million people kind of country, doesn't make it right. Respect for the little guy, Mr. President Xi used to say, respect for sovereignty and integrity of other countries. Okay, China miscalculation, I talked about that in my previous video, but now I'm talking about the big one. China miscalculation is the obvious risk that the conflict will affect greatly the economy of China and the people of China, and the obvious risk that the conflict of Ukraine to spread as Mr. Putin is going with his tanks to the borders of NATO, pushing the borders of NATO are reinforcing their countries, their borders, the Baltic states, the eastern flank, Romania, Poland. With that kind of tension, incidents can happen. I'm sure that Mr. Xi Jinping doesn't need a show Romanian guy that worked in construction or used car salesman to remind him of Gulf of Tonkin incident, of one shot or maybe a few at Sarajevo, and the great danger, the tension that the entire humanity went through in the Cuban Missile Crisis, actually in the Turkey, the United States placed missiles in Turkey 6 months earlier, and then Khrushchev placed in Turkey and in Italy, and then Khrushchev answered and placed his missiles in Cuba. I am sure that Mr. Putin, Mr. Xi Jinping, or Mr. Biden, or any leader of Europe do not need a show Romanian guy, a used car salesman, Leo the Tyler, to remind them what would have happened if, when the Americans invaded Cuba, if Mr. President JFK at that moment would provide aerial support for a failed invasion, the American planes would support directly what was supposed to be easy, a slam dunk. CIA told JFK that don't worry because the plan was done under Eisenhower and JFK was new there, just a few months. And they came to him and said, we have this operation. It's going to be easy. It's a slam dunk. It's a done deal. Don't worry about it. The Cuban will rise. Probably Mr. Putin, America invaded Iraq. They hope that everybody will rise because Americans came and gave them what W. Bush said. We are going to give Iraqi people medicine, food, freedom, democracy, and bombs, a lot of fucking bombs. And we want their oil. In translation, because my book is not good for your country to be translated. I'm going to keep translating to you. And it's going to be a walk in the park, a parade going to 4th of July kind of parade. The way we saw on TV, it was like a video game. Oh, what they are doing looks nice on TV. Yeah, they are bombing Baghdad. Oh, pew, 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 those lights, nice. You don't see people being hurt. You don't see buildings you don't see the civilians suffering at the beginning. Then if you switch the channel, which I read at a certain moment of Al Jazeera, this is all you see. They have cameras in front of every fucking hospital. And all day long, this is all you see. Terrible times we are living. And we learn nothing from what we saw on TV, what happened. What would have happened, coming back to the Cuban Missile Crisis, if JFK would have gave aerial support, American planes, Russian planes fighting two nuclear power. They thought there are 20 something missiles, 19 missiles there. In reality, the classified documents showed that there were more than 90 missiles in Cuba at that moment. 13 days, the humanity was in a state of nuclear war undeclared, a blockade, and then everybody thanks God, took a step back. They were able to solve that crisis without killing people, without destroying the world. Apparently today, the leaders of today, starting with the leader from Kremlin, Mr. Putin, with the leader in China, with other leaders of the world, it's obviously they are not able to solve this kind of dispute through negotiation. I'm not going to blame some of them that they didn't try. They tried hard, hours and hours. They tried. But there is one condition, like the other part, to negotiate in good faith. And honestly, I do not believe that Mr. Putin and the Russians negotiated in good faith for 1 fucking second. Not 1 minute, not 1 hour, not 1 day. 1 fucking second. I do believe now the events are clear. The plan is unfolding as I speak. They are attacking Kiev. They are fighting on the streets of Kiev. That was the negotiation. We keep all those idiots, all those monkeys, all those fools on the negotiating table to make sure we have time to put our tanks and missiles and planes in the position. We keep talking blah, 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 blah. We tell them that it's purely defensive, not a threat, and all kind of things. Let's do this. How about Donbass? How about Iraq? How about Kosovo? How about the Americans? NATO is bad. Oh, you don't care about our security concerns? Put the tanks, we de-escalate, but we put 30,000. That was big, eh? That was a spit in the face of the world. We de-escalate, and I was happy. Leo, stupid fucking, I was happy. I was happy. Naive Leo. I said, look, finally some reason there. Yes, of course. Okay, you build up, you have a good negotiating position, you show the strength and the greatness of Russia and that you are resolute. You mean business? I mean business, not war. Business. And now let's negotiate. How about Donbass? How about this? How about this? Oh, look there. Oh, look there. Huh? Leo, yeah. Okay, I have all the tanks. I have all the planes. Are you ready? The plans were drafted probably since 2015. He just waited for the Olympics to go. He signed the treaties with Mr. Xi, with all the other guys, and said what these guys are going to do. Sanctions. Yes, they sanction Cuba, they sanction Iran, they sanction North Korea, they sanction. That's what they do. Sanctions. Let's calculate how much sanction. What they are going to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How we can defend against this. This, we put a lot of money in our banks. We have gold reserve. We don't depend of them. We make sure they depend of us. Here is the gas. Take the Russian gas. It's good. It's cheap. It's cleaner than other thing. And you know, now are the Olympics over? Yes. Let's invent. Fuck the negotiation. We fool everybody else. And it's very simple. We are going to use a type of tweet that we are going to use their playbook. In the invasion of Iraq, they used the smoking gun, the mushroom cloud. Why? Because smoking gun violence, everybody in the American psychic, they do know about gun violence, and the smoking gun is when you caught a red-handed guy and this and that. Okay, it's an expression. And okay, and the mushroom cloud, everybody has the idea of Nagasaki, of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the mushroom cloud, terrible. So what do we have here? The same propaganda technique in the Russian psychic. What the Russian, average Russian person, hardworking, good family, doesn't like drug dealers in their neighborhoods. Okay, we use the drug dealers and, oh, this is a war for Mother Russia, for our patria, we call it, for our land, for our country, for the soul of Russia, for defending Russia, for fatherland. When we had that in the Second World War, it was very patriotic. It was. The Russians sacrificed them by the millions. They did. They fought very courageous. They did. Oh, let's use something to remind the Russians about that thing. Who do we did we fight at that moment? The Nazi. Okay. Now they're the neo-Nazi. Okay. Excellent. So we have neo-Nazi and drug dealers. Use this. It's so simple to demystify. And the genocide and all of this, they took it from Kosovo. They took it from other, as I said, some of the Russian that are oppressed there invited us, and they are very scared. The Ukrainians are going to invade Russia, and therefore I take 175,000 troops. I place them nice, make sure we have the missiles, we have the uh, aeroplane, the ships, the helicopter, the special operation units, and because we are very scared, Russia is very scared, sure, because Russia is under attack now. No, no, you are the aggressor. Russia is the invader, the aggressor. Fortunately, Russia confirmed all the bad things that the Americans, that I don't like 100%. I'm not buying 100% the American propaganda. Actually, I talk more against, not against, about the thing that the Americans have to improve than I talk now about Russia. But Russia crossed the line. Mr. Putin was talking on the international stage about the red line. I made some, metaphorically speaking, some blue line, and my blue line was everything was fine. I admired him. I said, look how you play on the international stage. And then he crossed the border. And then he started killing people. And then he started bombing 16 cities. I said, what the fuck is that? Is this for real? It is for real. You made war in Europe at that scale in 2022. Yes. Did you calculate the implication? Oh, we are going to Kiev, we take Zelensky out, where the Russian we are going to do. I said maybe he will stop in Donbass. He didn't stop. He attacked Kiev. So, what is China miscalculation, Leo? China miscalculated the risk for China of the war in Ukraine. The Russian invasion in Ukraine is a major risk for China. Not only economically, for China and the rest of the world. I understand China has interest with Taiwan. China is big, is smart, wise, intelligent. China doesn't need to use force about Taiwan. For the moment, that's all I have to say about that. There is much more to be said, but that's all I have to say today. The subject is not Taiwan. The subject is the fall of Kiev. The subject is the fact that Kiev is still standing and fighting. Actually, the entire Ukraine is still standing and fighting. None of the major cities, as Mr. Putin thought, they fall. Ukrainians are fighting for their country. They didn't lay down their weapons. They didn't betray their leaders and their motherland. Ukrainians are fighting for their country. China miscalculation, the risk for the what we have there in the Hong Kong. China is prepared to work with other members to the international community to promote common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. Resolutely safeguard the UN-centered international system and the international order underpinned by international law. Wow. China, fucking bullshit. China miscalculated the risk for the international security of this. They talk about international law, international system, international safeguard, the UN-centered In simple words, if some idiots on the border start shooting each other, if some planes in the air start fighting each other, if if by mistake somebody is putting down a plane of another alliance, NATO would be in a war with Russia, entire NATO alliance. That is what China, I don't know if China thought about it. I don't know if China knew the entire scale of invasion that Mr. Putin was planning. Maybe Mr. Putin took them by surprise. It shouldn't. But now they know. And after such an important high level call, this is what we got. This kind of blah blah and blah blah and blah blah and blah blah and blah blah. Man, to prevent conflicts, you failed. To maintain peace and security, you failed. I saw there, see diplomacy. I was impressed. I saw there many great things about the leader from Kremlin. I was impressed with a lot of them. I'm not a diplomat, but Leo the Tyler kind of diplomacy is very, very simple like that. I mean, do not disturb my circles. I made a video, I put it there. I think I posted there. I think it's straightforward kind of diplomacy. Everybody can understand what I said there, except the English, the technical condition, the light here, and I need a better microphone. I need one here. I don't know, one here. Yeah, okay. But do not disturb my circles. Comes from history. That was the meaning then. Now is the Olympics. 16 days. We can leave the Olympics for the athletes. And I would like 16 days to watch the beauty of the Olympics. If you build a wonderful Olympic village, I applaud it. I like to see it. I like to know about the skating ring, about the facilities there, how you transform them from summer to winter. I like to know all of these things. It's amazing. It's great. Show it to the world. I'm interested. I'm curious. Excellent. Do not disturb my circles. Human rights, sex abuses, then doping and this. Do not disturb my circles. Actually, you did. All of fucking. Leo the Tyler diplomacy. No excuse to invade Ukraine. I think everybody can understand. It's one line, not even one line. No excuse for invading Ukraine. I think in Russian it's easy to understand, in American it's easy to understand, in English, I mean, assuming that the English are speaking English, it's easy to understand. In Chinese, if you translate it, it's easy to understand. There is no excuse to invade Ukraine. All the rest can be discussed, but there is no excuse to invade Ukraine. I posted today a story of a t-shirt, Stay Strong Wuhan. I think it's pretty straightforward. Stay Strong Wuhan. It was a t-shirt, a shirt, uh, about human strength and resisting in front of in difficult times. Resilience is the word I'm looking for. Resilience and courage in difficult times. As I was, and many people around the world, did care about the Chinese people that they were in quarantine in Wuhan and in other Chinese cities. We should care about each other. I say today, stay strong, Kiev. I think we should care about each other. In Wuhan, in Kiev, in Sarajevo, in so many other places. This is kind of Leo the Tyler diplomacy. Negotiation. Mr. Xi and Mr. Putin. Mr. Putin, in his phone call, he said that he told Mr. Xi Jinping right here that he is open. Mr. Putin also expressed Russia's willingness to have high-level negotiations with Ukraine. I have it right here. I don't know what shall I do with this phrase. Shall I laugh? Shall I scream? Shall I shout? I have Mr. President Putin here saying that their troops are purely defensive. I wrote it down. Purely defensive and not a threat. I mean, what part of not a threat? I said, this is the word of a president. This is the word of Mr. Lavrov. He said many times, it's an exercise. It's not a threat for nobody, you know. And now, as I speak, and yesterday, and now they are bombing Kiev. Is it they are bombing Kiev purely defensive? They are bombing Kiev not a threat? I mean, the Russian soldiers and the tanks and the planes and the missiles and the ships are not a threat? The 13 heroes that they died on that island there, defending their territory, were not threatened, were not killed by the Russian army that Mr. Putin said is not a threat? He said it to the world. I am not a threat. Russia is not a threat. And then he asked, oh my God, Ukraine wants to go in NATO. That's why Ukraine wants to go in NATO. Mr. President, it's exactly this why Romania wanted to go in NATO, not to invade the Red Square and destroy Kremlin with missiles and tanks. It's exactly why Ukraine wants to go in NATO. What kind of negotiation are you talking about? When you lied and 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 you lied again. Diplomacy. The type of diplomacy that Mr. Putin was talking about, no, my book, is lay down your weapon and let me fuck you. Fuck you up. Let me arrest your leader. Let me change the government. Let me bomb your cities. Let me take the entire country. That's the Russian kind of diplomacy. Well, I call it war and invasion. I call it blackmail. I call it threat. Nothing to do with diplomacy. And it's even more ridiculous. Mr. Zelensky, come in Minsk. Where? In Minsk. In Minsk is neutral. I have 30,000 troops here, and the Belarus basically is under my control with the Russian army sitting there. It's not invading, we are friends, but we have the Russian. Yeah, I know this. In the 50s, the Russian army liberated us, and the way with the Russian tanks, Romania, the Russian liberated us, and they forgot how to live for many, many years. And they put almost 1 million people in communist prisons. I saw the documentary. Highly recommended by Leo. The documentary about the Romanian prisons. It's an incredibly well done one. So coming Minsk. Is it Minsk neutral in any way? Minsk is in Belarus. Belarus is allied with Russia. The president of Belarus is allied with the president of Russia. And Belarus has, I don't know how many are still there, but a Russian army on their territory in huge number. Come in Minsk, I can arrest you in the next 5 minutes. If you don't sign what I put in front of you, I can arrest you. They did this in Romania. They came there, they forced the Romanian king to abdicate, and they form a new communist government. Not that I'm a royalist or something like that, but it's a fact of history. Of course, Warsaw looks like a better option. And to be honest, I thought about something even more meaningful. In this book that I'm gonna publish one day, one of those days, why we don't read Moromeți, I wrote there a scene when all the, not all, some of the leaders of the world that sit down on a table, jeans, t-shirt, or a nice kind of jacket, we call it leisure, and they talk like regular people, they cut a little bit of the pompous protocol, and they sit on the table and they really, really, really discuss their grievances. Take a step back. Tranquilo, relax, detente. I thought to invite you at Bucharest. It was Bucharest 9. It was there. There is the House of the Republic. There is an option for Mr. Putin to measure the house to see how big our house is. Ceausescu Palace. They call it now is the Palace of the Parliament. But better and more personal, I might invite you to my summer cottage at Șoimari, Falcon Village. Mr. President Xi, would you be so kind to come down there to the Falcon Village, sit down on a table? I made a table with my own hands, not great kind of furniture maker, but I put the effort and the respect for my father with the wood that my father left me in the attic. I try to make something meaningful. It's important to have a table. When you have a table, this means there is a family, or this means there is a house. This means you have something to put on the table, a cup of coffee, a beer, a notebook, maybe a laptop, some pie made by my mother. Can have a piece of pie, some food on the table. This is important in the world. I wrote an entire chapter about the meaning of the importance of having a table, the meaning of the importance of having food on the table, which China was great, raising 700 million people out of poverty and helping other countries to build their nation. I don't know what happened here between Mr. President Xi and Mr. President Putin and the grievances with NATO. They thought, okay, we are friends, let's fight NATO together. That's a Cold War mentality. There is no doubt about it. So I thought to invite you, Mr. President Xi, Mr. President Putin. There is still time. No, I don't think that you are Hitler. Yet some of your actions remind me of the Second World War. Some of your invasion remind the entire world about the invasion of Hitler, it is what it is in the Second World War, taking one piece of this, one piece of that, and then invading. I don't believe that you are evil. I don't believe that you are Hitler. I don't believe that you are crazy. I think you are highly calculated and you calculated this for a long time, but it is an obvious miscalculation, a historical mistake. Mr. President Biden, come there, sit on the table, stop this war. It's going to be my birthday, 18th of July. I have enough time to publish the book, to finish the book. If you are coming, I'm going to renovate the house. What shall we do there, Leo? Do you realize the mechanism of security around us, the bubble that, yes, I have a slight idea, as I saw in Kananaskis, the G7, G20 something in Canada, and there were helicopters and I don't know how many rings of security guys that they cut down the entire mountains, resort and mountains. I was in that particular day, it was weekend, I was planning to go to Banff in Canada, a wonderful small town touristic city, and because of the security concerns, the entire area was sealed, shut down. I understand. However, what shall we do there, Leo? Well, in simple terms, to have a beer. And I'm serious. I'm not crazy. I think you are crazy for putting the world, for me to invite three world leaders to sit on the same table, have a piece of pie and some beer. Maybe you look up too much, maybe you don't realize the logistic situation, but it is a very human thing. It's a normal thing. Normal kind of people, different level of the society for sure. Different, I realize the differences, but normal kind of people, normal kind of human being, peaceful kind of human being, respectful kind of human being, sit on the table, as Mr. Xi did with other leaders, they went in Prague, have a beer, went he had a pint of Guinness, he had deer. Mr. Putin went in China and they visited in a train and they make pancakes and that's normality. That's what I'm looking for. I think to put the entire world in danger the way you did, that is crazy. And I have the responsibility of my work to invade Ukraine. That's crazy. Crazy, not crazy that you need to go in a mental hospital, but crazy, metaphorically speaking. So to have a beer, and I have a ping pong table, and apparently some people like to play ping pong with other people's lives, with other people's families, with other people's wives, with sons and daughters and mothers and sisters and entire families and entire countries. Take Romania, take Greece, give me Romania, that was Yalta, and some percentages there, 90% Russia in Romania, Stalin and Churchill, 10%, 90-10 and 10-90. That's how history is made on a piece of napkin, paper napkin, sometimes. I thought that it's a metaphor of the history, but actually that piece, that napkin do exist in the archives. That's how they gave countries one to another the influence, the sphere of influence at the Second World War. I have news for the leaders of the world. We are not in the situation today. We are not at the end of the Second World War. We are in 2022. In 2022, The leaders of the world are talking about respect for the little guy, respect for other countries, win-win kind of mentality. They all, and I wrote here with great respect, I wrote about all three of them that they are very proud of their humble beginnings. Mr. President of the United States was the scruffy kid from Scranton, as Mr. Obama was keep reminding during the election, and it is a true story. Mr. Putin started in a young boy in terrible times after the war, and Mr. Xi Jinping was from a good family, very highly respected family in China. However, if you read, I have it right here somewhere. If you read the book about the life and the dedication of his father, it's very easy to understand, including 16 years of harshness during the Cultural Revolution. It's an amazing life story, yet he was not shielded from the Cultural Revolution harshness like so many others in China. They were all of them, very proud and of their humble beginnings. So it will not be out of place to invite them to sit on the table with. One thing that the Romanian praise themselves is hospitality. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So we have beer, we have an open heart, we have an open door, we have an open gate, we have a table, we have a cottage left a heritage from my father, needs some repairs, a lot of repairs. I'll take care of that. If we have beer and ping pong, it is ironic to me that now, when they are invading Ukraine, when they are bombing Ukrainian people on the Chinese television, they are talking about ping pong diplomacy. For 20 something years, the biggest powers of the world, China and the United States of America, were waiting for some athletes to play some ping pong, and then they realized that they have a lot in common, and Kissinger went there, and Nixon went there and met great leader Mao, and then good things happened for China and for America, and I'm not ironic. Good things happen for China and America when they play some ping pong. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Come to the Falcon Village, sit on my table, let's have some beer, play some ping pong, have some ping pong diplomacy, some ping pong beer diplomacy. I'm going to explain it later. Ping pong beer diplomacy. That will be a beautiful thing to do. And in simple words, I respected all of you enough. I'm 54 years old. All my life, I respected the United States of America and their presidents. I mean, I was not that much interested in politics. All my life, I grew up with respect for China. My mother told me since I was a kid that China is a great culture. I have books here, how many amazing things the Chinese culture brought to the world. And I was born in 67. I have nobody in my family that suffered in the communist prisons. It's a personal situation. No, we are not privileged by the communist regime in any way. My mother went to school because to the university because communists came and it was free, accessible. My father evening classes from construction engineer, it was free, it was accessible. They would have no money to pay high fees for higher education. It's a fact of life. I grew up with free medical care. I had no reason to hate Russia in any way. On the contrary, one of the first time when I went outside Romania because of the communist system there, I went to Russia in Moscow and it was left long-lasting impression. Even now, yesterday or today, I saw those amazing piece of art that there is the Moscow metro. And even as an adult, when I lived in Canada, I went in other 12 countries. Not enough, but I saw a little bit. They are amazingly beautiful. Imagine a kid being 13-year-old, first time out of his country, seeing those and knowing the story from my grandfather, that my grandfather was there and she said, do you know that there is a train that goes underground in Moscow? I said, how? The train goes on the surface. We have trains here. No, 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 that's a different kind of train. And I knew the story, and then I have seen it. To give one example, I saw the Hermitage and the St. Petersburg, which was Leningrad, and all the stuff. I grew up with respect for Russia. In my time, it was Brezhnev. Then, on drop of the, I didn't care. I knew one name, Deng Xiaoping from Chinese history, Mao and Deng Xiaoping. That's it. What I'm trying to say in simple words is, I respected you enough. I respected your countries enough. It is time for you to show some respect for the little guy. In simple words of Leo the Tiger. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Mr. President. And one more thing. No word, please. There is a postscriptum. One more thing. Israel. An easy subject, like at a certain point, Mr. Lapid didn't think that will be a violent conflict between Russia and Ukraine. I saw on YouTube. Well, Mr. Prime Minister Lapid, guess what? It is a violent conflict between Russia and Ukraine. What we are going to do about it? The short Romanian guy kept a speech. You are the Prime Minister of Israel. What you are going to do about it? Well, it's very difficult, Leo, because Russian, they have Jewish population, and Ukraine, they have Jewish population. To make it even more complicated, we have 50,000, no, 500,000 Ukrainian Jewish people in Israel and 400,000 Russian in Israel. So the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, it's a domestic issue for Israel politics. It's very difficult, very complicated. To make it even more complicated, we have interest with the deal with Iran, and we have other interest with Russia. It's very complicated. You have the problem with the Palestinians, the Ukrainians supported Israel, and funny thing, that Mr. Zelensky, that apparently it's a neo-Nazi, it is my understanding that he has some Jewish descent. So what shall we do about it? Mr. Leo, you see, it's very complicated. Mr. Lapid, Mr. Prime Minister, you as a person, as a Prime Minister, and you as a nation of Israel, the state of Israel, you are never wrong, but always right when you stand up for peace, stability, and cooperation. Peace, stability, and cooperation. It is in the interest of Israel that Russia should stop the war. Mr. Putin should stop the war, but in good faith. In good faith. cut the bullshit, no more bullshit. In good faith, stop the war and negotiate each other because it is in the interest of Israel. That's how I see it. You want the Russian Jewish people in Israel with the Ukrainian Jewish people of Israel to live in peace, like would be in a normal kind of world. That is the obvious answer. It's not a complicated, that much of a complicated issue. In India, Mr. Modi, Mr. Modi, ambassador of the United Nations, abstained when they voted. I don't know what, because I got sick and tired of blah 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 there, and they came and they voted, they talked, they voted, and obviously Russia voted against the resolution. China abstained. I mean, I wrote the blah 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 here that it's 1 hour 46 minutes now of this speech. My surprise was India that abstained. I asked myself why. I don't know the reason, and I didn't see the speech, or they know better. What I do know was that notion of satyagraha comes from the Indian philosophy, means holding firmly to the truth. Satya means truth, and graha means insistence, to hold the truth dearly and stay there, from the left, from the right. There is a meaning of it. Truth force is a particular form of non-violent resistance for civil disobedience. How do I know about that? Two sources. First and foremost, I read a short biography of Gandhi. I also saw a movie about his life, Hollywood movie, excellent movie. And they mentioned the term in the American movie, The Great Debaters, the one with Denzel Washington. They explain it there to debate satyagraha, but I knew it before, I heard it before. Obviously, who doesn't know the fight, the March of the Salt, the fight for freedom and independence that Mr. Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, led his country. I know about it. So I'm thinking about that Mr. Modi and the Indian ambassador was not able how to fit the satyagraha, so the truth force, holding at the truth, the insistence to tell the truth, how to put it in the context of a special military mission of peacekeeping in Ukraine. That's how Mr. Putin called it, the Ukrainian invasion. A special military mission. They are peacekeepers. And I thought the Indian ambassador there was confused. I mean, he said, we have satyagraha, we have the truth, we have to hold the truth dear to your soul, the force of the soul, they call it something, the soul force. And then we have this thing here. I mean, how am I going to vote? Special military operation peacekeeper. Oh, it's very complicated to make this kind of decision. Let's watch TV. Oh, they are bombing Kiev. Oh, they bombed 16 other cities. Oh, they invaded. Oh, they have tanks. Oh, planes. Oh, missiles. Oh, they bomb a hospital. They kill people. Peacekeepers? Satyagraha? Obviously, the ambassador was confused and said, I don't know, I abstain, I don't know. India, the great India that put land on the moon, and I don't know. It's confusing. Indeed, indeed. Sometimes when you see bombs coming on the buildings of Kiev and people fighting in the streets and tanks running over cars on the streets and families running for shelter, refugees going out in the country, peacekeepers. It's very confusing. You don't know how to vote. It is a war. Maybe it's not a war. Shall we call it an invasion? Shall we call it a war? Maybe we play some semantics. It's not an invasion, it's a military special operation, purely defensive, not a threat, peacekeepers. And then you think that a sure Romanian guy to invite some more leaders to sit on the table, have a beer, have a piece of my mother pie. It's crazy. Now what you are doing there, it's crazy. The fact that you are unable in the third day to stop this war, it is obviously crazy. I wrote here if Gandhi, in his time, would have abstained, probably India would not have been a great independent nation as it is today. That's all I have to say about it. One more thing. Stop the war, stop the war, stop the war. No war, please. Other than that, you're welcome.